As Nick pointed out, also there's a profession involved with it. But maybe we can just think about in terms of when you are trying to, as you said, give other people an experience and to give them something, as opposed to when you're dressing up to express something that's about yourself. I'd like to hear, from everybody about this, but I think the people who actually have the performance experience could kind of start the question off, since you've been on both sides of the issue. Anyone?
Look at us, we're all like, hey, huh? Echo?
I've got big feet, I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
No. Well, I think that when you do it for yourself, when I'm running around with my visible wings on, haha, it's a different sort of thing, because you're not really, you're just sort of existing in a way that is, oh gosh, English is my second language. I don't know how to explain this. More so when, let's say that, like, for this, my character's name is Sarah in Afterlight. So with Sarah, I have a given sort of set of details about her that are not me, but that I channel through me to become her. But when you're just kind of walking around being you, I guess I don't know. I'm not answering this well.
I think what it is a lot for me. And it doesn't matter which of the characters I play, the lines blur.
Oh, yeah.
To a certain point, it is me, but only, and this character's being channeled through me. And I think sometimes it's those hidden parts of me that come through. There was one day, for whatever reason, somebody dropped nerds in the dirt, and I picked up the dirt, the nerds, the gravel, and stuck it all in my mouth and spit the gravel back out. Esther would never do that, but that character would. And it's finding where those lines and things blur over, and doing something you may not necessarily do and be unexpected. But for me, those lines between who I am as Esther and who my character is a lot of times blur, and it's like the ocean. It just goes back and forth.
I think it always comes from a place. I mean, as
somewhere deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as an actor, I'm very organic in my approach to things. It always comes from a place within me, because it has to come from a place of truth, or no one will ever believe it, because on some level you will feel lied to. You may not know it, but you will feel it. And so whether I'm, dressing up for myself, or whether I'm part of someone else's vision or helping to create a vision, it's always coming from within me. Now, it may be an amplified part of me. It may be a layered part of me, because certainly the character has different life experiences, but it's always, I always say, what have I been through that relates to this? How have I been able to feel this similar emotion? Because we can all relate to, whether or not you had the same event happen to you, at some point in your life you've probably had that feeling, and so I think it's a very deep place of truth and love for me that everything comes out of, whether it's for me or whether it's part of someone else's vision. It's always that same sort of path of truth.
For me, I think there's a innate part of everyone that when you're a child, you very much rely on your imagination to make yourself, just to have fun in general. Anything you have can become a toy, for example. This could be a flying saucer, this could be a sandwich. But as you grow up, we learn to do the logical things. There's that logical song that the Supertramp did. And I think that really that hits home for me, that you're told you have to dress this specific way, you have to stop playing when you're an adult, and you have to be out in society, and you have to bring in a paycheck, and all these kinds of things that supersede that which really brings joy, which is the creative part of our process. And for me, putting this on basically means I can leave the logic behind and do the things that you're not usually accepted to. That's not usually accepted for an adult to do. I can blow a raspberry to the child, and the child will look at me quizzically, and then blow one back, and then there's a connection that's been made. And by allowing myself to go back to that being childish, I gain a certain amount of freedom, and hopefully can lead others towards being able to have that freedom as well.
Well, one of the things that I have found about being a writer is that you're doing that internally. You're not doing it necessarily with costume, but that you're always trying to be different people, and you get to be all these different people. And it's always facets. I mean, they're facets of ourselves that we cannot bring out into our ordinary daily lives because they're antisocial. They're not socially acceptable. There are many reasons why one would not do that, and you wouldn't want to, but you know what it feels like. And when you can write, when you can be those people on paper, and you can be anybody, it's really very freeing. It's fun too.
I just filled her mouth. I silenced her.
Great timing.
Oh, that was perfect timing.
Delia, do you think about masks and revelation?
I think I don't know whether I can't do that. I have to come up with it spontaneously. I can't.
Okay, I was really, the phrase you used when you were first talking about your visible wings.
Oh, yes.
And I think this plays into what Niec was saying as well, about how when you're a child and you're playing dress up, it's something that is so natural, and it's part of the fact that for young children there's no division between the self and reality and the world. And playing dress up is not strange, it's just kind of part of this exploration of the world. But that as we grow up, somehow or other, all that has to go inside. And that you have to make more of an effort to make your wings visible in a way, which I think, you know, from what you're saying, is for people who are not necessarily doing it professionally, but are doing it for themselves, is a large part about why people dress up. I think, Larissa, you want to speak to that a little bit about?
Just in terms of ideas about creativity, one thing we know about being creative is that you have to have a skill that we call divergent thinking, which means you can bring things that have no apparent connection together and make something new from that. And kids are very good at doing that and do it often, and I think it's part of that sense of wonder that they come up with these just crazy new things. And then as you get older and become more following social convention, adults actually have more trouble with divergent thinking. But if you look at artists and writers and actors, we still maintain that skill. And so I think costume actually helps facilitate that, in that you're kind of bringing things together from maybe some things that are parts of you, but some things that are part of ancient traditions, some things that are part of a fairy tale, and pulling them together in new ways that become a new expression of who you are. And so that is really like how we understand the creative process, that you just have to do that to be able to come up with something innovative.
I think too that it takes an awful lot of courage to be yourself, and that if you have the aid of having a costume, you know, I think that for a lot of people, that don't do it professionally, or even for those of us who do, that if you're in an environment where you can wear a costume and you can sort of, have your inside reflected out through a costume, it gives you it makes it a much easier transition than going around talking about your invisible wings. You know what I mean? I think it's really, I think a lot of people find that it allows them the freedom to sort of further be themselves when they have through the aid of a mask or a costume or whatever it is.
Well, Delia, as you mentioned about the masks allowing you to say things that you can't get away with saying otherwise, there's the element of, kind of childlike identity and growth that's part of costuming, but then there's the aspect of costuming that is also about danger, and is about finding a way to say the unsayable, to do the undoable, to speak truth to power with the protection of the mask. And that's another thing that, and Delia, like me, as a student of the 17th century and the drama of that time, when the lines were much blurrier, when the line between costume and ordinary clothes was very hard to see, because people's everyday clothes were fantastical back then.